Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, we gather information from many different places and many different people. So if you hear yourself in our conversation today, please remember it is not all about you. Today we have our guest with us, Miss Robin. How are you doing today?
I'm terrific.
I tell you, this subject is probably one of the biggest subjects that comes up to our world here
comes
more
up a lot.
often than, gosh, I wish it wouldn't.
And it's kind of sad.
It is sad.
It's sad. It's sad.
Now, today, here's the title of today's opportunity. You might want to write it down. You ready? Replace yourself before the funeral. Now, by that I mean this. In any organization, in the hierarchy of the different jobs and functions that need to be happening, and I'm going to especially encourage this in nonprofit organizations, where, people are not being paid, but they seem to sometimes hang around too long in certain positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say this right off the bat. Sometimes staying in a position is like when guests stay too long at your house. And they're both kind of like fish. After 3 days, they stink.
And sometimes people in positions and organizations, especially volunteer organizations, as we've said, tend to stay along beyond their usefulness.
And look, Robin's saying that in a nice voice. Okay?
I am, because I'm at that place. I'm at that place in a couple of organizations where I'm no longer useful. I'm not sure that people aren't accepting the opportunity to come on boards and things because I'm there and they don't want to deal with me. Or if the organization is really, really, really just dying.
Well,
I hate to admit that, but it might be true sometimes.
I think that's true in all organizations, even for profit, I believe, but especially nonprofit. The first thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is, because we're all going to be involved in something, is to encourage the leadership to look at and update the job descriptions.
Right. One of the things that I'm finding in my organizations is because things are progressing a lot faster in 2019 than they progressed in 2010. And things are, the world is changing, opportunities change, information changes, everything is changing. And you're not necessarily in your organization keeping up with those changes from the outside world.
Right.
And that's a problem. I know we've also been involved not only in religious organizations, but in community organizations for businesses and things. And I'm telling you, in the past 3 weeks, we have seen some major, major changes, and we're not sure they're all good. So these are some things that we think organizations need to be aware of.
Well, the job description.
Job descriptions are huge.
Let me go into this a little bit. It used to be when it said, you're going to be the president of an organization, there was really a set list of things that you were in charge of and accountable for.
Correct.
And what we have seen is that accountability factor seems to have gone away, especially in nonprofit organizations.
And do we know why that is?
I think because no one really wants to take responsibility for
being in charge.
To be in charge, but for stuff.
Or do they want the title but don't understand that there's some work involved? They may or may not be part of what they thought they should be doing.
I think that's the part that really kind of strains me sometimes, is that the number of people I've met on certain boards that I've been part of, they wanted the title. They wanted to be on the board of directors so they could put it on their resume, or they could tell people, I'm on the board of directors of this organization. They didn't really sign up to do the work.
Now, did they not understand the work? Did they assume because they had the head title they could do whatever they wanted, or not do what they didn't want to do?
I don't know. The gentleman who approached me the other day they asked me to do this. It sounded like something I would enjoy, so I said yes. But I got no instruction. I got no information.
Yeah, we'll do
and all of a sudden, I was being kind of chastised for not doing certain things, and I had no idea of what I was supposed to be doing.
And I have been in that position
Mhm.
on a couple of different times where you did not have a good job description. There might have been one buried in a file, but what you understood from the previous person needed to be done was about half of what really needed to be done, and you were expected to do everything without having any foreknowledge, and that's hard.
And so that's why we're saying the job description has to come along with some instruction.
Right.
All right, but I'm going to take this a little bit further. As
Really?
you're trying to take and save this place and replace yourself before the funeral, I want you to be on board about identifying skills that are needed within that position that are included in the job description.
That the other members of the board or the governing body might not be aware of.
Well, everybody needs to know. There should be nothing hidden here. Everyone should know what the job description is and what it entails.
See, that's where you made your mistake. You assumed everyone already knew what all the different jobs were and what all the pieces were that made the whole pie. But they didn't necessarily talk about those pieces that made the whole pie.
Well, and that's why this gentleman approached me and said, I really wanted to do a good job, Dick. I really did.
Exactly, but he didn't have the
But now
tools.
I'm going to walk away because...
I've been crapped on.
I can only be yelled at so many times.
And I know we had, in one of my organizations, put someone in the head chair that was new to the whole thing, and that probably wasn't nice, but that's okay. But the first couple of years, and she held the position for 2 terms, which was a mistake. See, that's not a smart thing. For 2 terms. And halfway through her second term, one of the other board members said, we have to stop doing all the work that supports her because we're killing ourselves and she looks great. And it's not fair.
Okay. So
it's not fair.
It's
not equitable.
We need to be, we need to have this job description.
Right. You need to be upfront about it.
We need to identify the skills needed within that job description and have them written down so they can be shared with everyone.
Yeah, no secrets.
And then as we're looking for our replacement, so to speak, we need to really have I'm going to say a formal and an informal interview process.
Exactly.
If these people do not have the skills for the opportunity,
or if they don't have the heart for the job,
and want to learn,
if they just think, like I said, they've got the title, they do what they want. That it doesn't necessarily work well that way. I'm king. Yeah. And it doesn't just apply to the head person. It applies to other people. How many times you've been on a board or we'll just call it a board, where the secretary cannot get out a decent copy of the minutes? Well,
and I've been on a board where
it's not good.
The treasurer was asked to be the treasurer because they were a teller at the bank.
Or in my case, it was an assistant manager at a bank, and she had no idea about financing an organization.
She could really take care of your loans for you, but
I mean, or she could make sure somebody could take care of your loans for you. Because, like, my girl was a assistant, a branch manager, but she had no idea about anything else.
The informal interview, I'm going to say, is just like having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and just talking about the organization and things that need to be happening and maybe even show them the job description.
That would be helpful.
With the skills listed needed to be able to handle it.
The expectations.
Because I'll tell you what, I have actually found people who loved the challenge of learning the new skills in order to do it because they had the heart for the organization.
And the inclination to learn the new skills. Okay. And that's important because you have to be willing to learn and change and be adaptable and helpful and all those other lovely terms we try to do.
So when you're going through this process, know that there's just things that need to be down on a piece of paper, black and white, before you get started. And that's why these things become so important.
Right.
The other thing that Robin brought up as we were speaking there, and I don't know if you caught it or not, was the word term limits.
Term limits.
And here's the thing we found. Most opportunities in nonprofits have a 3-year term.
Right.
And that means the first year you should kind of know what's going on because hopefully you spent a whole year with the person,
with the organization,
going off the board,
or at least in the organization,
and you're coming on. And so the first year you're kind of, getting your feet wet, kind of going. Second year you're just excited to take and bring on opportunities, new stuff. And the third year you might be just getting tired.
And training your replacement.
But that's what I was going to say. The third year is your opportunity to really start bringing that person along that's going to replace you.
About 10 years ago, I was in that position in an organization, and the head person at that time said, "Oh, I'm so glad you said yes, because I've seen you within the organization." It was a pretty big organization. Over time, we've encountered each other, and we really need to make changes. We know this. We just don't know what they should be, and I don't know. She didn't know what they should be. And at that time, her husband's health was declining. So not only did I get to follow her as the elect person in that position, but I got to go to the bigger organizations, bigger meetings, because she couldn't travel. So that was a huge opportunity, because I learned things that I may not have, So I didn't go into it clueless. But there were people there who were not happy with anything changing. And I was not happy with this one person, because she'd held a position for, I think, about 15 years maybe altogether.
15 years.
And it happened to be the finance person who did not have computer skills. So it was a disaster. God bless her. But she did not want to step down. Somehow they got the idea that the treasurer was too hard to replace every 3 years. It's not. And again, though she did leave in the middle of a term, it really bombed. And it took some really good, dedicated people that knew a lot more than I did about accounting
how to bring it back
together. And it's very good. But we're getting to that point with the current person, because she's been in the position for a while, and she's very, very, very good. I have no complaints at all. But again, maybe that's not the right way to go.
Here's the thing I want to say. If you are in a position and you're doing all the work, you have really taken away the opportunity for someone else to be involved. And here's what happens. New person comes in, they see some people who have been involved for a long time, have all those positions, but they've had them for a long time, which means, there's nothing for me to do. Why should I be involved?
Not only that, but think about it this way. If you're coming into a position, this person's in her third term, this person's in her fourth term, this person's in her second term, and you're buying into a 3-year term. And I say flat out, this is a 3-year term, a 2-year term, and I'm done. I can, but those are also the resource people to come back if someone has to step back. Well, so it's not bad, or you can move into another position. But it's not a good idea for everyone to look at you and think, well, she's the only one that can do that job, and not even be interested in helping or serving or learning or anything.
The thing about this is that term limits are good. Okay, so write that down. They're good. But what I'm going to bring up next is this constant instruction.
Right.
We're people who are moving through a world that's just changing so rapidly.
Dramatically.
It is hard to even keep up on a daily basis. The people who take care of all this electronic equipment, when he comes up and sets everything up, I have to tell you, he talks so fast that I have to keep telling him to slow down, because, I just don't get it a lot of times. And that was a perfect example of how people were in the organizations. The people who knew what was going on were just going 100 miles an hour, talking to them, leaving everyone else behind. So the constant instruction of everyone of what each of the jobs do, and the accountability factor. I just can't, I don't want to get away from this accountability. We are all accountable to someone, somewhere. And in an organization, especially nonprofit, I believe we start to forget that. Well, it's nonprofit. We're not here to make any money. We're helping all those little people out there outside the door. And, but you know what? We still have to be accountable for the money that comes in, the money goes out, for the activities that happen and the activities that don't happen. And even on a monthly meeting, the accountability factors that the agenda goes out, early, so everyone can get up on board.
That's a theory. It's a good theory.
I'm all about agendas going out at least 5 days prior, and here's the reason why. It gives people who should have.
There's that word.
Yeah, we don't want to should on ourselves, but they need to have seen, okay, this is what the agenda is. This is what I'm in charge of. Do I need to do something
Do I need to
prior
be
to?
prepared for a report? Right.
Exactly.
And I have been in charge of organizations where we always saw each other once a year.
Mhm.
It was a pretty far-reaching organization. Only saw each other once a year. We had one meeting with a 3-hour time slot.
Okay.
And so everything we had to do, basically, you had to plan to get
They're all done within 3 hours.
Within 3 hours. So I came into this position and I wanted everyone's reports, instead of taking my 3-hour time to read a 40-minute report from everybody, each person, I wanted them to get the reports in early. We especially wanted the finance report in early.
Oh, sure.
Well, I can tell you that over my term, I could never get the treasurer person to get it was handed to us at the meeting, 5 pages. You don't even have time to look at it to ask questions. That's bizarre. If you need things ahead of time, make sure they're in ahead of time. Make sure in your job description it says you are expected to get your reports in whenever you're expected to get your reports in. And if you're not, there needs to be some kind of, I don't know,
removal process.
Failure to do so will result in removal.
I'm sorry. That just has to happen.
So it has to happen. The other part is after the meeting, and this all changed probably maybe 20 years ago when we all started getting computers. We were going to a meeting once a month, and you get the minutes the next month when you went to the meeting, right? Useless. You need the meetings. If you miss the meeting, you might find something you completely missed because you missed the meeting and happened in between and you didn't know anything about it. So we started a policy where we wanted the minutes out within a week.
Yep.
Now if I'm in charge of something and I want the minutes within 48 hours, because I need to know what really went on there. I can take pretty good notes, but I need to know what really went on, and the people who weren't there need to really know what really went on. Yep. And they need to know that quickly, sooner rather than later. So that's one huge place where things have changed over the past 20, 25 years. It's not hard. You're not even printing them anymore. I just send them an email. It's perfect. It's perfect.
I truly like that. There's one group I'm in, and I have to tell you, before I get back to our office here,
right,
the minutes are already in my inbox.
That's right. They were taken at the meeting.
Now, I have to tell you that this person is like me, types with these two things, okay? And so
probably, yeah, that's okay.
Okay, if we can type with 2 fingers, you can type with a lot quicker. It shouldn't be a problem.
And then everything's fresh. I don't understand how anybody ever, knowing what my note taking looks like at a meeting, could go 3 weeks later and go back and figure out what would happen. I just don't understand how that can even work. But get them out early. People need to know it's not a secret.
If it's a year-end report, you're at a nonprofit where your people are going to vote on this big packet of information that talked about their finances, that talked about what happened during the year and everything else. If it's handed out that same day that you're expected to vote on, I want to tell you how terrible that is. And I'm going to tell you, I see this more often than not in churches. And I'm going to tell you, it's wrong, and I'll stand on it all day long.
And I would go so far as to say it's a control factor.
Oh, sure it is.
They're used to the control because that guy does not, or woman, whoever is doing the finance, does not want to answer any of your questions at all. They do not want to be questioned about their accounting, about anything else, about what got spent. But that's wrong.
This is what I'm telling you. The accountability factor in nonprofits has to happen.
Because the other part I understand about that is if they'd gotten the report out 2 or 3 weeks earlier, that people would have had time to question them privately through emails or a phone call, and they could have got that all worked out.
All done.
Because when it comes to the meeting time, it's too late to change the report. It's too late to update it, change it, make it easier to read, anything you want to do, and next year that report's going to look exactly the same. So it's going to have exactly the same problems.
If you're a leader and you really want a green stamp on everything, that's the way to do it.
You want a smiley face.
But I'm going to tell you what, that's just the wrong way to take and run an organization. Because then, I'm going to tell you what, the health of your organization starts right there. And that's why I put up this on here, replace yourself before the funeral. The funeral will be started if you run your organization this way.
And if you are not allowed to improve those, because who is we're talking about, you have to keep doing what we've always done. It's not, I can tell you that one organization I was talking about, that particular one, is not doing any better. It's on a decline. It's on a decline for donations. Expenses are going up, donations are going down. The people that are involved, that have positions on the board, I just heard from my local person, she's not going to the annual meeting. I don't think she's ever been to one. So, and she's a statewide rep. for an organization, and she's not going to the annual meeting because she doesn't see it's necessary, I guess, to make time in her schedule,
Yeah.
or find a replacement, and that's bad because it affects the long-term finances and bottom line of the organization.
Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen.
Dying.
What we're trying to get across to you is that if you're not on the constant lookout for new people, new ideas, new ways of doing things, and then updating that job description,
Right.
It's not that big a deal to update that with what needs to be done and how it needs to be done and the skills that need to be happening. It's not that tough.
Right, because generally speaking, according to your bylaws, the job descriptions are not part of the bylaws. They're separate, and they can be amended, updated, changed anytime you have a meeting.
And they need to be.
And they need to be. You need to look at them, update them, amend them, change them. Make it work for whatever's working now.
Now, I'm going to take this a step farther.
Are you?
Okay, because replace yourself before the funeral really stems back to the basics. The organization's vision. You see, the organization's vision is its future picture. And I believe a lot of times we just kind of slap some words together and say, that's our vision. Everybody love one another. That's just not what it means. You see? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the end goal? Stephen Covey always said, begin with the end in mind. That's really where he was coming from with this. Okay? The second part is your mission. If your people don't know what the purpose is of your organization, and you are not showing that the people within the organization that you're kind of moving forward on that, what am I doing here?
I wanted to finish your sentence, and I'm going to break in and go back.
Oh, Miss Robin wants to say something.
I need to say something.
Well, go ahead and say it, and I'll jump back.
I was going to go back to the vision.
Okay.
And what I wanted to say about vision is, if you can't see a picture of your future mentally, you don't have one. So be aware that if there is no future vision, there is no future.
Yeah.
And keep that in mind at all times. If you don't have a look and an idea and are not adjusting that major vision once in a while to fit the reality of today, then you are not having a future.
Here's the thing that doesn't change or shouldn't. That's your mission.
The mission.
What's your purpose? And everyone in the group, everyone in the organization needs to know the purpose, because everything relies on that. If we're not living through that, and we're not making all of our decisions and choices through that, we're not
through the vision.
We're not doing anything. And of course, the third leg on that stool is your strategy, your plan. And planning, it's not. I love it.
It doesn't have to be hard.
I love it when somebody says, "Well, we have a 5-year plan." I said, "Well, when did you do that?" "Well, 10 years ago." And it's
that's true. I mean, we do.
Believe me, that does us.
We had a 5-year plan.
That is the honest truth.
Slow, yeah.
Planning needs to happen all the time. It really does. At every meeting, there should be some kind of accountability of what we're going to be doing next, how we're going to be doing it, who does it affect,
and that we were doing something. Yeah.
Are we living through our purpose to achieve our vision? And you know what? This shouldn't be a secret to just the leadership of the organization. It should be everywhere. And every time you stand up and speak in front of someone, or you're seen, you should be able to spit out the vision and the mission.
And not only that, but when some people have ideas, they need to support the vision and the mission.
Yeah.
I mean, be open to ideas and let people know that's good, but be open to the vision and the mission, and how does that fit into, I just jumped into strategy.
But if they don't know, they don't know what it is. If you've written it on the top of your letterhead, and that's the only place you've ever seen it and never heard of it. Today, I was at a meeting with Miss Robin, and it was a wonderful meeting. I had a great time. But I asked 2 questions of 2 people who were sitting at the table.
I didn't hear this.
One, what's the mission of our organization? They didn't really know. And then I asked them what the vision was, and they didn't know that either.
That's funny because, my team last spring came out with a vision and a mission and a strategy just for our organization within our church. And guess what?
I didn't say church.
I said church. It's church.
Well,
Old-time gospel radio. It can be church. And it is on the top of all of our agendas, but I have not published it in our monthly newsletter.
well,
My bad.
I
My
went.
bad.
I went on to ask if they knew what the vision and mission of our church was, and no one knew that either. And
Oh,
so
it's that all God's children know God's love or something. I don't know.
all God's children know God's love. Well,
But some another pastor said, well, he didn't say it was complimentary anyway.
That's just not that's not in there.
It's
But
not.
anyhow,
It's not real.
I'm trying to take and get you to think about this. How important this is that we continually to share this with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And this planning thing, it needs to have a monthly accountability factor to it.
Mm-hmm.
So each of your pieces within the organization, whether it's the secretary or whether it's the finance person or it's the, what's going on in our membership, there's got to be some kind of, if there's no accountability, you don't have an organization.
Right.
And I'm going to say that very bluntly. If you do not have any accountability, if everything's just willy-nilly, and by the way, I'm the boss and we're going to do it my way, I'm going to tell you what, you really don't have an organization.
No, you have a dictatorship that will implode. Yes.
and this is I think this is why this became such a hot topic with Robin and I today, is that we saw it in action. We're seeing it in action.
Seeing it.
And it's just driving me nuts.
Can you tell?
Because I'll tell you, first of all, these are people who are much better educated than I am.
But not necessarily the same experiences.
I'm self-educated, self-medicated. It's all good. But the thing is you just have to get out and learn this stuff and be willing to put something new into your life.
Into action.
You see, I didn't use that C word at all. I just used something new.
What's the C word?
Change.
Oh, yeah. Not a word people like.
Well,
they like improvement.
Well, if you're not improving yourself every day, you've got a problem.
Yeah, you're stuck.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back and talk about interviewing people because we kind of jumped over that a little bit.
About 3 minutes.
Okay. You need to interview people and find out. You might want to find out what their experiences are.
Okay.
You might want to find out other organizations they're involved with and how they were involved and what the connection was. And you might want to no.
If you do that, make sure you contact the other organizations and see what they say about them.
And it may or may not work. We live in a retirement area, so people are coming from all parts of the country, and you may not have that access to people.
But you can try.
But you can talk. If the hairs on the back of your neck, say thank you very much. I hope you come to our next program and blah blah blah. But let it go. The one thing as we've had trouble with in the past also is putting people in huge positions that have been in the congregation or in the organization, whatever, less than a year, because they really have no idea about how things are working at that time. Not that they can't come in and make changes and improvements and alterations and everything, but they really, and that's either going to go two ways. Either they're going to do nothing or they're going to make some changes that really are not good. But do some interviewing and find out. Or they drop out. They don't show up. But there are every board has simple positions for new people coming on so they can see how things go. Anyway.
Just make a list of all the jobs that need to be happening.
Yep.
Take some time and go down through it. Look at the skills that need to be taken to do them.
And look at the personalities involved.
Personalities are huge.
Because you can't really change that.
And just kind of just go down through the list. And you know what? This becomes a pretty easy thing if you stay on top of it.
And if you do it all the time, it becomes a natural
progression.
A natural process for you.
All right. Well, I see our time's coming to a close. How you doing, Mr. Robin?
I think I'm done talking. I'll let you know.
All right. Well, on behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and Robin Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, I want to say thank you for being a part of today's program. Our hope is that you've received a nugget of wisdom and guidance that will help you become a better leader. Now, if you have any questions or comments on today's program, please do not hesitate. Give us a phone call, 727-422-1833. Send me an email, dick@ewfw.org or robin@ewfw.org. You can go to our website and spend some time, and there's a place to click on and send us a message there, www.ewfw.org. And when you're ready to have Robin and I come and put on a leadership opportunity at your location, make sure you get on the phone call or you get us an email and do it pretty quick because we book up very quickly over the year and we want to make sure that we can come and help you. Got anything else you want to add, Miss Robin?
I think I'm good.
All right. Well,
ride hard, ride fast.
This is us saying ride hard, ride fast.